The following program is a paid commercial which has been paid for by the advertiser, whose products and/or services are featured in this program.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Gerardo Castillo, and I am the owner of Inter-American Interpreting, and we're here in our first broadcast with Silent Voices, Strong Voices. This podcast is mostly dedicated to the deaf community in the El Paso, Las Cruces area. I'm starting off this podcast, hopefully, if would like to see the deaf people just take this podcast themselves and have them lead and direct this podcast. This is our first trial, and we're excited about this venture that we're involved in. I want to also thank our two sign language interpreters that we have today. We have Carlos and Patty, who are also part of the Inter-American Interpreting organization. And we're very, very excited and honored to have Ms. Joanna Vara with us here to be the first person to be interviewed and be part of this adventure. So again, this is Silent Voices, Strong Voices. And we're excited to be part of this, again, exciting podcast. So I'm going to first start introducing, again, myself, Gerardo Castillo. And just to set up the layout, Joanna is deaf, and we will have Patty voice for Joanna. So every time you see Joanna sign, you will have Patty as her voicer. And as you can see, Carlos is signing for me. So that in case a lot of our audience don't know exactly what's happening, this is exactly what full access looks like. If we could have more interpreters, we would have more interpreters. We would have as much accessibility, captioning, live caption as possible. But again, this is our first podcast, and we are going to be learning and advancing from this. So with that said, let's move on. Can you please introduce yourself to us and to the audience, who you are, and a little bit of background about you?
Hello, my name is Joanne Vara. Everyone in the community knows me either as Jojo or Joe. I was born deaf here in El Paso. I'm going to UTEP right now. If I graduate, I'm going to be the first person to graduate in my family when I graduate from UTEP. I have a sister, I have a brother, and I'm the only person that is deaf in the family.
Awesome. So you're going to UTEP. Before UTEP, tell us what high school did you go to?
I went to Burgess High School and I graduated in 2013. I play softball in there. Ever since my junior year, I started playing. On my senior year, I did 13 home runs. I was the captain of the team. What is that? They call me Beast Mode.
Beast Mode, that's awesome. So you're a little bit famous then.
Yes, because here people are able to identify me like that. So you're the home run girl, or they notice my last name Vara, and they connect it to me hitting the 13 home runs. And so I'm well known in the community.
Well, that's awesome. That's awesome. We have a star, a shining star in the community. And yet, a lot of people don't know about this, and that you're deaf. That's great. Hopefully, with our audience, they can see that we in El Paso, not the only star that's not shining in El Paso is not the star in the mountains, but we have all of these stars out in the community. So I'm very proud of you. Thank you. So let's see. My second question is. So you're going to UTEP and you're studying. Can you tell me again what you're studying at UTEP?
I'm studying it for education. I want to become a special ed teacher. but I want to teach in high school. I want to teach science because I really like science. I love science.
I, Side note, when I was in high school many years ago, I don't think none of you were born yet. Science was the worst thing in my subject. I failed science all the time. So having someone that does science is awesome. And now that I'm in my 50s, I can really appreciate that. So congratulations, science. That's an awesome subject. So you're going to UTEP. There is another university called Gallaudet. Can you tell us, do you know about Gallaudet? And if you do, can you tell us a little bit about Gallaudet so we can educate our viewers?
Yeah. I know about Gallaudet University. I know it's the only university. It's a deaf university in Washington, D.C. I got accepted into Gallaudet, but I wasn't ready to leave El Paso. I wanted to stay with my family. So I decided to go to EPCC, and then later I transferred to another school, a deaf school.
In Big Springs.
In Big Springs. And then I graduated there in 5 years. So now I'm back. I'm settled here, and I'm going to UTEP right now.
So Gallaudet is a deaf university in Washington, D.C., the only university in the world, basically, that is fully access for people, not only deaf people, but deaf blind people, deaf people with other disabilities. They provide sign language interpreters for everyone that goes into that university. The staff that works at the university, the maintenance people, the cafeteria people, everyone needs to know sign language. When you first start working at Gallaudet, if you do not know sign language, they'll give you an interpreter for about a year. But then after that year, they'll wing you off the interpreter. Therefore, you have to, within that year, learn sign language and be able to communicate without an interpreter. The goal is to have full access at that university. So hopefully, maybe if your graduate studies, you could do it at Gallaudet.
Maybe I'll go get my master's over there, hopefully.
There's a lot of strong leaders at Gallaudet, so and strong Latino deaf community there as well. So once we talked about graduating from your degree, becoming a science teacher, where would you like to teach?
I would like to teach high school. Burgess specifically, because they have the regional day school program for the deaf is there, where they have two schools. One is Hartley and the other one is Burgess. Before, we used to have Hillside in there. Now Hillside is no longer part of that. Now they have Hartley, which is elementary and middle school, and we have Burgess.
And so Burgess and Hartley now are in the El Paso Independent School District, correct?
Right, yes, EPISD.
And they are the only programs in the El Paso County that provides full access for the deaf students?
Right, they both have they both provide access for the deaf community, but it's also in the surrounding areas like Socorro and Fabens. All the students from those areas end up at Burgess because that's where they have access to communication and interpreters. And they also have that's why I would like to go teach there at Burgess.
Now, I've been to Burgess. I visited Burgess and the now merged middle and elementary school. It is fascinating to watch that school is providing excellent sign language interpreters for the students. They're providing excellent support system for the students, and having you part of that program would be a great asset to them. And I also know that they have a great deaf instructor as well. I think Ms. Rosie Yanez there as well. So having you at the school district would be a big bonus for the school district.
Right.
Well, we're going to take a short break, and and we'll be back to continue this great conversation with Ms. Joe. And because I have a few more questions, and then we can wrap it up. And but let's take a commercial and see where can continue with this. Thank you for staying with us. And just a side note, this again, I mentioned it at the beginning that this podcast is very unique and special to us. And my goal again is to have this podcast be taken by the deaf community. As you can see, again, emphasizing on the layout on this podcast that we're having. I know in general they usually have 4 chairs or 2 chairs and people are just talking back and forth. Just so that we can have accessibility for the deaf person, we do need to have a team behind the community. And this is the sad part about the deaf community, because in order for them to apply for work, in order for them to go somewhere, especially in a working environment, a lot of people do not hire deaf people because they're not hiring just that one person. They're hiring a team behind them. This is an invisible barrier that needs to be shown and needs to be broken down. It is exciting that we're here. It is exciting that we're showing the whole team behind this young woman, the team that is going to just be there for her success. So for you viewers that are watching this, do take a mental note that it is not charity, it is a right. And in order for for anyone to make a decision on a deaf community, on a deaf person, we need to have that deaf person involved in this decision makings. So that was just kind of a little side note that I wanted to just put out there. So back to Ms. Joanne. We're almost towards the end. So I just wanted you to tell us, you are a young person. How do you see yourself as a deaf leader here in the community?
Well, what I see in myself is that high school changed my life, because when I joined softball, I wanted to really show the hearing world that deaf can do things too. It's not like, oh, okay, they can't play because they are deaf or anything like that. Deaf can fight for themselves. They can graduate high school and they can continue playing any sport or anything they want, whether it's volleyball or softball or anything. So here in El Paso, I'm still playing softball. I've never really stopped, because softball did change my life. This whole concept of deaf can makes me proud and happy. So I really want to continue that. I don't want it to stop, until I retire.
Just a little quick side note. There's a hashtag that's trending, and it's a lifestyle that deaf can. So if you see hashtag deaf can, it's because deaf people can. So that's a trendy quote that deaf people live by. So side note, sorry.
That's okay. Softball is an important part of your life, and it helped you build your character and who you are. This is also a great opportunity for, I know that we have the Chihuahuas here, that the baseball team, to also recognize and know that we do have there's a stars amongst the community, and it would be nice to see if maybe Chihuahuas can be part of the sponsorship of your team, because I know that you're always looking for sponsors.
Yes, that's right.
Any last messages before we end our first podcast?
I want to thank Inter-American because I see all the interpreters out there providing accessibility for the deaf community. And it would be nice to see interpreters in the news. Sometimes the closed captions are not working or they don't match whatever's happening. But if you have an interpreter when the news are being broadcasted, that would be very nice to see it at the same time that the news are being broadcasted.
That's great. That's a great note to end. And I guess to the producers of KFOX and CBS, that if you ever want to provide sign language interpreters for the news, you would also be the pioneers of having sign language interpreters in your news, including the deaf community. So, and like what you said, sometimes the captionings are not working, or sometimes a lot of deaf people cannot keep up the speed of the captioning. So, well, in that note, again, I want to thank Joanne for the extraordinary work that you're doing. I want to encourage you to keep studying, and then once you graduate, I really would like for you to see you out in the community, bringing the community together and leading that community towards excellence and access to whatever your needs are. I also want to thank our sign language interpreters. I want to thank Carlos Pina for doing the sign language interpreting, and Ms. Patricia Garcia for the voicing interpreting as well. And again, I'm Gerardo Castillo, and I'm the owner of Inter-American Interpreting. And if you ever need our services, we are here to provide it. And again, thank you very much for this podcast, and thanks to Silent Voice, Strong Voices, our first podcast ever. And thanks to KFOX for providing us with this awesome opportunity in this podcast.
The preceding program was a paid commercial which has been paid for by the advertiser, whose products and/or services are featured in this program.